Hi everybody, this is Mr. Holding here, and this quick video is looking at degrees of dominance, specifically looking at the concepts of codominance and incomplete dominance. Okay, so starting off, we just do a quick recap. When we looked at Mendel's simple inheritance, we talked about the concepts of dominant versus recessive. Okay, and if we look here, basically when we're talking about inheritance, we know that we get a gene or an allele from both parents, one from mum, one from dad, and those two alleles combine to determine our particular traits. That trait might be height, skin color, hair color, eye color, and lots of various other things. Okay, so on a chromosome we have a particular gene on a spot here, and those corresponding spots on the two corresponding chromosomes are called alleles. Okay. When we talk about a dominant allele, we're talking about something that is expressed over a recessive. Okay, in Mendel's case, he talked about pea plant color. The yellow was dominant to green. Okay, so if there was one green and one yellow, then the pea would turn out to be yellow because it was dominant. Recessive, on the other hand, it would be recessive to another one. And so when we're talking about recessive in simple inheritance, when we're talking about recessive and dominant, we use capitals and lowercase. So if we look at Mendel's plants here, we've got a homozygous dominant, and we can see they're two capital Y's. Okay, a heterozygous, we end up with a capital Y for the yellow and a lowercase for the green, because the Y is dominant. And express for the gene codes for yellow, we end up with a yellow seed. And in the case of a homozygous recessive, we end up with two lowercase y's. So this is how it works when we're talking about this simple inheritance in terms of dominant and recessive. Okay, so when we're talking about simple, we're talking about dominant recessive. There are two other things though that are a little bit more complex. So incomplete and codominance are two other ways that genes might link. When we look at the case of blended genes, so in the case of the Budrigars here, you can see that we've got a blue one here and a yellow one here. These are called purebred blue or purebred yellow. These two can combine and produce what's called a green, okay, or a heterozygous bird which comes across as green, and this is known as incomplete dominance. Okay, so incomplete dominance is when there's a blending of the two. Okay, the Budrigard is a good example because you can see very clearly here you've got blue and yellow and you end up with green. Okay, in this case we actually use different letters for the dominant gene. So instead of having big B and little b, we end up with capital B for blue and capital Y for yellow. And so the second type of dominance is what's known as codominance. Okay, and that's when both characteristics or traits are shown. So the example given here is blood groups. Okay, so blood comes in A, B, AB, and O. Okay, and the A refers to the type of antigens on them. Okay, so in A type, it has these little A ones, and they're represented by those spikes. B type blood has these Bs. Now, AB is when you have a gene for A and a gene for B, and they both come together. And instead of blending or one being dominant over another, they are both expressed. So as you can see on the one down here, you can see that the A and the B antigens are shown on that, and so that's known as codominance. Okay, so they're the other two types of degrees of dominance. So you've got your incomplete dominances, which is a blending of genes, and your codominance, which is where both of them are expressed as well. Okay, there is another type of inheritance, which is sex-linked inheritance. Okay, but we'll investigate that in a further video. Okay, so I hope you found this useful.